we don't go by script. We have stopping points and really focus on the storytelling, but they needed to learn, how do you carry on a conversation? How do you ask open-ended questions? How do you talk to families or a student who doesn't want to be there?
Hey everybody, this is Jeremy Tiers from Tutor Collegiate Strategies, and you're about to check out the latest episode of the Mission of Mission podcast, a show that's designed to help higher ed become better recruiters, communicators, marketers, and managers. Each week I'll introduce you to an industry leader or difference maker who will share helpful advice, tips, and strategies that will help you grow professionally and personally. Mission of Mission is part of the Enrollify podcast network. I'm excited to share my latest candid conversation, so let's get started. This is episode 18 of the Mission Admissions podcast. When I'm on college campuses during the year or when I chat with admissions professionals, I always get a ton of questions about creating a better campus visit experience and just building up a strong group of tour guides and student workers. The campus visit has, and I would argue will continue to be, a super important data point. So I'm excited to chat today with my friend Heather Strecker, who when I first met her in 2016, was the director of campus visits and events at Albion College. Heather has since pivoted a couple of times in her 10-year higher ed career, and she is now the senior director of admission at Albion. So welcome to the show, Heather.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So I don't know if you remember our first interaction, but I do. And when Tutor Collegiate Strategies first partnered with Albion in 2016, I remember walking around the admission office in between meetings and just watching how the student tour guides and workers were interacting with each other and with you. And I just remember walking away thinking, man, that's the kind of culture every school needs to have. People are enjoying themselves, but people are getting work done. And then a few hours later, I remember finding out that despite being a small private college, Albion had over 100 tour guides and student workers, which to this day, for a school your size, I have yet to see that matched. So I would love to start there. If a college wants to grow their student worker or their tour guide program, Heather, what are 2 or 3 of the most important things they really need to focus on?
So I think the first is just investing in the tour guides themselves. And that obviously means financially paying them, but also financially in training them too. And I think that's something that not just onboarding them, but doing consistent and constant training. Things are happening and changing all of the time on the campus tour. They're learning new things. We're expecting our tour guides to honestly be the experts, even more than some of our admission counselors, and we're paying them a full-time salary. And so investing in them financially in a number of different ways. And then I think investing in the staff as well that's training them. I can't believe how often I talk with other schools who the person in my position was also doing a number of other things outside of events and tour guides. They were expected to recruit, or they're expected to do, any operational things as well. And I think what I advocated for and what Albion has been really great in is saying, no, we realize this is a full-time job, and actually we realize it's more than a one-person job. And I finally actually got the second full-time staff member just hired a month ago. They see that that's important to be able to have the staff to actually have the time and energy to train and to mentor and to guide those tour guides.
Talk to us about training. Frequency of what you were doing and you've seen work well. Obviously, I know a topic like storytelling is super important, but I also know it's not just about a tour guide saying, well, I'm just going to share my story because I think I need to share my story, right? Let's talk about training, not only the frequency at which you've done it in the past, but you've seen to be effective, and just other topics that you would train on. Let's start there.
Sure. So the training, our training schedule that seemed to work the best for us was doing for new tour guides, we would hire them in the fall. We would start recruiting and interviewing and hiring them a couple weeks into school starting. And then we would do a full-on new tour guide onboarding for those. And that was typically a couple of 3-hour trainings that we would do. And it's not people talking at them. It was interactive trainings that we would work on. And then after they were onboarded through the actual like physical, like us being in a room training, they were required to do 3 shadows with a current tour guide, and then they were to do what we called a co-lead. So they would have experienced or senior tour guide that would kind of be on the tour with them, but they were expected to kind of lead the tour, and then they would get feedback after that. If they were good to go, and they got approved by all parties, they could be officially a tour guide. If not, they might be asked to do kind of a couple more shadows and meet with their team leads. And then as far as just ongoing training for all tour guides, they had teams that they were on, and they would meet with their team leads twice a month. And the team leads would then meet, we called that our e-board, would then meet with me or the person in my position every other week as well to get training topics, or like, hey, everybody's been talking about air conditioning in Wesley Hall. That's not happening. So like, let's make sure to tell everybody that's not a thing. So just either passing down points to remember or to actually give like training. And so that happened throughout the year. And then one last thing, every fall, we would bring all tour guides back 3 days early before move-in. And we would do a 2 to 3 day intensive tour guide training. And there was also always fun aspects and team building aspects in that as well. But there was updates and kind of bringing different campus partners into that process as well. Or if we change the tour route, kind of training on all of those things.
So outside of learning more about Albion and changes that are happening on campus, I feel like there are a lot of other important topics that tour guides, I mean, you said it earlier, they might be more important than the admissions counselors. And you know what, Heather? I might tend to agree with that. If nothing, they're of equal importance, mainly because, again, what they can offer is what no admissions counselor, even if the admissions counselor went to Albion in your example, can offer, which is the current student perspective. Because obviously prospective students think that even a 27-year-old admissions counselor is old and no longer can talk about things, sure, right, sure, that are as applicable. So when those trainings were happening, what are some of those other topics besides storytelling that you really either had the team leads focus on or you focused on in those different trainings?
It depended on the time of year. It depended on the feedback that we were hearing from campus surveys or visitors. We had to teach them about all of the different academic areas. Again, we don't go by script. We have stopping points and really focus on the storytelling, but they needed to learn, how do you carry on a conversation? How do you ask open-ended questions? How do you talk to families or a student who doesn't want to be there? We're doing all individual visits, or at most, 2 families on a tour. So it can be very awkward to have a family who they clearly were fighting on the way here, and the student didn't want to be here, and the parent really wanted them to, or the student's shy. And how do you bring people out? And then how do you tell them your story without making it all about you too, and like making sure to ask the open-ended questions and getting to know the student, but still like at the end of that 45 minutes or an hour, they know about Albion too. And so a lot of it was finding different ways in which we could train them on these things, and then practice. It was a lot of practicing of that as well.
Well, and to your point, it's so important that training happens throughout the year and not just once, maybe before school starts and once, which is what I see happening on way too many campuses. And I'm well aware everybody's busy, and it goes back to the point you made earlier, which is I'm empathetic for the person in your former role a lot of times on these campuses, because if we're being honest, they are doing 2 full-time jobs if they are recruiting even a small territory or managing all the events too. And so I'm empathetic to that. But I just know that it's going to be so much harder, and tell me if you disagree, to not only recruit, but definitely retain student workers and tour guides if that investment is not being made. Not just because obviously this is something they enjoy doing and potentially they may not enjoy it as much, but there are other options now that college students can go do that pay them as well, if not better, right? So how do you get them to understand that? Meaning, all right, so let's just play it out. You're going to explain to a new tour guide, well, we're not going to have you read off a script, so you're going to kind of have to like learn this and make it your own. And oh, by the way, you have to be able to hold a conversation not only with somebody a couple of years younger than you, but also potentially their parents. And oh, by the way, please don't screw this up because you play such an important role in this process that if you do, how do you get a new tour guide, right, to understand, all right, it's pressure and it is hard, but like it's also an opportunity for me to make a major impact and help this student and family through their college search process?
Well, I think, and this isn't really helpful for people who are trying to grow the program, but I think a lot of it comes back to kids want to be tour guides because they had an awesome experience when they visited campus and they were like, that looks like such a cool job. This person was that tour guide, ex-tour guide was so cool and so fun and so nice and I want to give that to somebody else. And so I think we have I think you would ask a lot of our tour guides, and that's how they initially became interested in being part of the program. And they will say that. For those that weren't or got brought in another way, shape, or form into the program, I think the other thing that has been really important is that we've had buy-in from top down, not just in the admission office, but on campus. So like the president comes to their training and the vice president of our office comes to our training and vice presidents of all different departments. And they come and they're reiterating also what I am saying. And then I bring in their peers who are helping to train and they're saying the same thing.
Alrighty. We're going to play a game, guys. Okay. So first and foremost, get a pen, get a paper, pull out your notes app on your phone, whatever it might be. Okay. Got it? Great. All right. What keywords does your website currently rank for? Take a couple seconds, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. I gave you a few, not just a couple. What doesn't it rank for that you think it should rank for? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, what are a few keyword opportunities that you could be winning on if you just simply tweaked some of your existing website copy? Got it? Okay. How'd you do? Ooh. Not so hot? Not sure what you're currently ranking for, or not sure what you could be ranking for? Well, that's okay, because our friends at DD Agency want to help you answer all of these questions. DD Agency is a higher ed specific marketing technology agency that has conducted countless SEO audits for colleges and universities across the country. In these audits, they detail where you currently rank, what you could be ranking for, exactly how copy should be tweaked on website pages, and so much more. If this sounds like something that you could benefit from, give the guys at DD Agency a ping and be sure to mention that Enrollify sent you to claim a 10% discount on any of their SEO offerings. So head on over to enrollify.org/DDA SEO. That's DDA as in DD Agency, SEO, or simply follow the link in the show notes below. That will guarantee you get a 10% discount off of your audit. All right, head on over to enrollify.org/DDA SEO, or simply Google DD Agency, find DD Agency's website, and be sure to mention that you heard about them through Enrollify when you request your audit. All right, folks, back to the show.
Did you have to push for all that, or was that all in that structure was there when you started Albion in terms of senior leadership being involved?
It's to be honest, it's kind of dependent on the president. So yes, a little bit of pushing, but not a whole lot, because I think they see that if these tours, and we've showed them the data, that if the tours don't happen and the kids don't visit campus and they don't have a great tour experience, these kids aren't coming here and this place isn't going to be here.
What about, again, these team leads that you hit on before? Help me understand kind of how you basically explain to them, all right, you're each going to be responsible for X number of students, and knowing that's a student to student relationship there, how did you help those senior leads basically continue the professional development process in terms of like what you encourage them to talk about in those meetings? Do you feel like there was intentionality there? I mean, talk to us a little bit about that.
So again, it's kind of the buildup of the program. It's looking up to the seniors of the program, and we have sophomores, juniors, and seniors who fill those kind of aid board positions. But we've trained them. They see, again, the students apply for these programs. So we tell them, they get paid more. There's more responsibility. They have additional, office hours or office responsibilities. So it's like we kind of frame it as almost a mini internship for these students. So like, oh, you can help us with the tours and social media. You can help us with data. Like we'll teach you a little bit of, low end data if that's what you're interested in. So they can kind of pick, or you just want to be at the front desk and do some front desk office, kind of hours. And so I think part of what we've done there is create that that students want to apply for these additional positions, because we've shown like these are resume builders for you. You're in, it's hard to have during the year internships, and we've really built it to be more of like there's so many other skills that you can get out of this. We don't expect you to be a professional tour guide, but let's think creatively. What kind of skills are you getting out of this? And we start those kind of conversations literally at the first tour guide training as well, so that they can start thinking about, I want to be a teacher. I want to be a doctor. How are these skills going to transfer? And then how can me, or whoever is in my position help you?
The most important retention strategy is what for student workers and tour guides? If you had to narrow it down to one thing in your opinion.
I think the first thing that comes to my mind is that that we care. Sometimes it seemed, they call it like the zoo. They would call my office the zoo. It was like a constant, turnstile of students in and out. But I think they felt comfortable, and but they also were going to be held accountable. And they knew that. They knew that it's a fine line. It's a hard thing to build. But because of that, they respected me and they respected the process enough. They wanted to be part of the program. Having an open, having that open door, having the ability they've had a hard day to talk about it. They're frustrated with something on campus. There's a place to go, but also like, we still expect you to like get out there and give a good tour, or be honest and say, today's not the day. And I can't get out there and give you, and let's pass that along to somebody else. And I think for those reasons, that's when, or that's how students continue to come back, or why they want to continue to come back.
Well, and I think about, previous experiences I had when, again, we partnered with Albion. And I remember talking to, and I believe she's still an admissions counselor there to this day, but a former student tour guide and worker who eventually became at Albion admissions counselor, and just saying to her once in a one-on-one meeting I had with her, hey, by the way, like, what made being a part of that program so much fun? Why do you think? And literally she gave me a one-word answer, and the answer was Heather. And to that point, I think we undervalue that empathy and caring, and we just think, oh, it's really not going to make that much of an impact, is it? No, it does, because I would argue all of us want to feel valued, feel impacted, like we're making a difference. But it's hard if we don't feel like the investment's being made, in this example, obviously, by leadership on your end, to then say, well, yeah, but even though Heather tells me she's got an open door and this and that, why do I want to go spend that time if I don't feel like I'm being invested in on a current basis? So I would just, anybody listening to this, do not underestimate the importance of just literally caring. But I would add, there has to be intentionality in the way you care too. What do you think the hardest part of giving a tour is?
I think finding that door into connecting with the family. So I think, because it's going to be different every single time. And so I think to find that path in, to make them finally open up, ask the open-ended question, and getting that student to open up and to make that connection.
So what have you seen as effective ways to do that?
My best tour guides fall back or move forward with the student. The parent will always walk side by side with them. And I see them kind of like, shorten their steps in order to meet back with the student and ask the parent talks and redirect, not being rude at all to the parent, but redirecting that to the student. Is that something you actually care about? Or is it, and making that, like, because sometimes the parents don't even realize that they're kind of controlling that conversation. And so finding ways to connect with the student, or like saying, Mom, Dad, you stay right here. I'm going to take Joey downstairs real quick. I'm going to show him something, and finding like little pockets of the tour in which they can just connect with those students, with the student, and especially if they're kind of having a hard time with it too. So.
And that leads me to thinking about something like personalization, which has always and will always continue to be important, right? One of, I gotta believe, the biggest things that you all were able to do that differentiates you even to this day is you're able to give, as you said earlier, it's one family at a time, Jeremy, maybe two, because we have the staff to be able to do that. If somebody's listening and says, I'm not there yet, even if I want to build to 100, what can these different student workers, what can leaders in your position do to try to help get more personalization when it comes to the campus visit experience?
I think the other thing that we have done, even in like the bigger groups, or you could do if you had, I don't know, 10 families in a group too, is we ask the tour guides to come in. We have a short profile on each person each student that's going to be on their tour. Again, that's hard for a tour guide. It's expecting a lot, but like looking through and finding out something unique about each one, or like that this is the student's interested in biology, the student's interested in tennis, or the esports, or whatever, even if they're not being recruited, and somehow being able to drop those little nuggets at some point on the tour, not even starting off with, hi, Jeremy, I know you're interested in biology and you like tennis and you're from, Waterford and blah, 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 whatever. But more having those come up naturally within the tour. And, I passed the biology lab, and say, I actually know that you're interested in biology. This is where you're going to spend a lot of time. And even on a bigger tour, I think there's ways in which you can find customization or individualizing the tour that way, which makes the student feel like, that's really special that you took the time to read about me before you even got out on tour. So I think that's one way. Everybody knows all the name tags and if you can do personalized schedules and the parking spots and the welcome screens. But I think the ways in which the tour guide can help to make it customized out on the tour is really where it kind of stands out. The other small touch that we still do, that we always get feedback about, is having the tour guide write a note to the family after the tour as well. So it's not an impact while they're here on campus, but we still always get feedback about how cool that was that the tour guide dropped a line and brought up, it's not generic postcard. It's like, it was so cool hearing about the state tournament. Good luck, on that, and hope to see you back on campus, or some kind of personalization on that as well. And I think that goes a really long way.
Well, and to your point, it's understanding how to get people talking by asking the right kinds of questions if you don't know anything, that again are open-ended but yet direct. And then I would also argue something I talk a lot about, and I know you all do a really good job with, it's getting, hopefully, the admissions counselor, whenever possible, ahead of a student coming to visit, to be able to have connected in a way where they've gathered some of what I would call those connectors. And to your point, those can be shared, even if they're little small things about different likes and dislikes, right, about a student ahead of time with the tour guide. But then the key thing I think that you hit on that most schools don't do, from my experience as I've gone on tours, right? Because I do things like tour audits, or I'll follow along the back, and the VP knows, but the tour guide doesn't know. And I'm watching, all right, all these things we're talking about, how do they flow? Does it seem awkward? And it's not just starting with, hey, you're so-and-so from like you said, it's how do I organically weave that in at a point in the conversation where it doesn't feel forced and it feels more. And I think one of the reasons, again, you all are really good at that is the amount of training, back to the frequency that we talked about before that you do, that's how you develop habits for all of us, right? It's doing it and talking about it. Is it working? Okay, it's not. Let's talk about what to do to fix it. How do you prepare tour guides and student workers for tough conversations and tough questions they're going to get from either a parent or a student?
We actually write them all, everything we've ever heard down, and we go through them one by one. They break up into teams in training, and they kind of map out what they think they would say, and then we get people to come up and answer it, and we workshop them as we go through, and then we constantly get new ones, and we add them to the list. And I always tell students, you need to be authentic. You need to talk about your experience that you've had here. Each of you are going to have a little bit of a different experience. I'm not asking you to lie or be untruthful about the experience that you're having, or we don't say partying doesn't happen, but how can we frame that in a way that you're answering the question, but also, not saying that who, talking about this specific party that you went to last night, and kind of helping them see through that. Or I've had a tour guide on tour get asked, it was an alum, she's an alum now, but when she was a student, the family kept asking, well, what was her actual ACT score? And not what our range is. No, but what's yours? And finally she was like, I'm really not comfortable. And they also asked if she had a boyfriend or a girlfriend. The parents asking this on tour. And so finally she just kind of stopped the tour and just said, I'm going to actually bring you back to my boss. And I think that was really a great way. She felt uncomfortable, but she felt comfortable enough just stopping. And I give them that autonomy too, that, if something's uncomfortable or you're just you don't know the answer, it's okay to say, I don't know, and I will get you the answer when I get back, or I'm going to get you in touch with my boss right when we get in the office, and they can help answer these questions. And so giving them that power to do that while they're on tour, I think, is important as well.
I appreciate you sharing that, and I think that'll be helpful for a lot of people. You mentioned accountability earlier. How do you set that framework up? Because it's super important, I would argue. So anything you can share as to how you make it clear when they come in and they start as a part of the program, and then how you maintain so that, again, they understand the importance of accountability?
I think I do it the same way I do for my staff. I sit down and I say, this is a job. And I actually frame it as, this is the most important job on campus. You were just hired for it, and now you're going to have expectations that come out of it. And you're also going to have some really great things, but we need to talk seriously about what those expectations are. And we talk about how you look and, what you're wearing on tour, how you present yourself, that being on time is late to the office. And we talk about that and how this is we talk a lot about how this is going to continue into your professional career as well. And so I think trying to put other context into it. And then we also don't let stuff slide either. I think kind of as a mama bear in the office, and that they feel comfortable coming to me, but that they also know they're going to be held accountable. And so if something was said wrong or right, I will praise them, or I will have a conversation with them about how to change that moving forward. And if it happens that we kind of have a 3-strike policy. And if we have 3 things that we've had to talk to you about that are significant, that we've had to document, then you're just no longer part of the program.
What's the biggest thing you've seen change with the campus visit experience in the last 5-6 years?
I think for us, the number of tours or visits that students are going on seems to be, at least from our perspective, less. I used to think, they're starting as sophomores or freshmen, and we still see tons of those, but they're not visiting 20 schools like they used to. Maybe they're visiting 5 or 6, and sometimes for a school like us, staying closer to home, and so and not visiting 3 or 4 times, which we used to see a lot of, maybe once or twice. And so really making sure that we hit all of the things on the tour the first time, thinking that maybe that's all we're going to get. Where in the past, we'd get multiple times for most students, actually. So I think that's changed a lot.
And to give context for our listeners, that's something when we do research at Tutor Collegiate Strategies, we've noticed even over the last 2 to 4 years is students telling us, I might visit 1 or 2 schools before I start my applications as a senior. But for so many of these schools, I want to see, am I going to get in? What's that financial aid package going to look like? And maybe then, if that school is still on my short list, I'll go. Or to your point, even if I want to visit all 10 of these schools and I'm excited about all 10 of them, I don't have the time. I don't know if our family has the money, the resources. And so what part of the campus visit experience is most broken, Heather? Just in general on most campuses.
I think just sticking to what we've done, like the actual, like a tour route, and just doing it the way we've done it, because that's the way we've always done it. And that's what makes the most sense.
So how do you get out of that mentality, in your opinion, if you're giving somebody advice?
Your young tour guides who have recently gone through the experience, try to get them on tour and just sit back and listen and have them give feedback on what's important to them, walk around campus, what would they have wanted to see, what do they want to see, what's missing, and kind of think through, could you make this experience better just by just changing the route a little bit or changing where you need to go, and relying on our experts who are these kids who have recently gone through it. We're old and out of touch, or even though we think that because we're in the office, we know that all, it changes so much, what they want, how they want to experience it, the way in which they want to experience it, the new apps they're using, what's cool, what's not. Yeah, exactly.
But it's like you said, it's analyzing data, I would argue, in real time, multiple times throughout the year. And part of, I think, the most important data gathering, to your point, always involves talking with your student workers and tour guides, asking not just how's it going, good, asking more direct, intentional questions as to, hey, how's the tour going? What kind of questions have you been getting more than you usually do? Where are you seeing families like roll their eyes like, oh my God, is this going to be done? Why are we talking about this? And then I think the last part, and tell me, this is where it all sinks and comes together, and I see a lot of schools falling short, Heather, is, all right, now we've identified some of these things we want to change and we've talked about it, but we don't really come up with a plan other than, all right, Heather, you're a tour guide, so stop doing that and just stop doing it. Well, no, there has to be, I would argue, more intentionality in, all right, well, how are we going to practice that? Or what are we going to do differently? Because I think it's a challenge for most young people to say, all right, I'll figure out what the plan of action is then on their own.
Absolutely.
Thoughts on that?
We've struggled with that. There's been, leadership that comes in and says, we really need to showcase X space on campus. Why aren't you guys going through this new space? And it's like, well, yeah, we would love to go through that new space, but let's think about this. Let's not just add spaces and places because it's new and shiny. Does it actually make sense? And then if it does, let's rethink about all of this, because we don't want the tour to be, an hour and a half. It doesn't need to be an hour and 50. We don't need to add more time to the tour.
How long do you think a good campus tour lasts?
45 minutes, an hour tops. And then if they want to see other things, come back a second time, or let's go back and we'll get somebody to take you. Like, for example, we don't show every single dorm. We show, but maybe there's a transfer student on campus and we say, okay, we'll have a tour. You come back, meet with the admission counselor. We'll have a tour guide show you that exact dorm that you're talking about when you get done with this thing. Instead of saying, okay, we're going to show 5 different places where you can live or whatever. It's not necessary. We can talk about it while we're on tour, but then let's customize it, either when you get back or based on your needs. So I think going back to that first part too, is if you're going to change something, it's also being intentional about, you've got to train again. You can't just expect these tour guides to stop in the, new dining hall and know what to say or know how to say it or know how to pivot on this. And so it's, why are we changing this? Why are we adding this new thing? And why is that important for them to now add and take, and why are we taking something else off of tour? So I think that's also important. And the other thing too is I think we need to think about what are the basic needs that the student, cares about. What are the most important things? And those need to be the first things that you're doing on tour. Just like I'm sure you're doing in trainings about calls, you've got to engage them in that first question or two, or else you're going to lose the whole conversation. And that same concept runs true on a tour. You've got to show, where am I going to stay? Where am I going to eat? What do those things look like? And then, okay, fine. Let's talk about academics. Let's talk about the sports or the extracurriculars and other things. But I'm worried about, what all those spaces look like first. So kind of thinking strategically that way as well.
Well, and to your point, empowering the student there on tour to be able to say, I really don't care about this stuff, but you know what I would love to see or hear more about? And also, if I'm the tour guide, understanding, okay, even if I ask the right question, that student might be really nervous and might not know what to say. So I have to be willing to say, hey, one of the places I'm asked to honestly show people the most is this, and connecting the dots for them. So it's being prepared. Exactly. Back to training. Situation A, here's what we do. Situation B, here's what we do. And then I think, again, tying it all together, it's getting those team leads or those senior level tour guides, or if you don't have them and you're listening to this, you get someone like Heather when they're doing those intentional one-on-one meetings with those student workers and tour guides to be able to talk about some of these things, not just asking the general vanilla, how's it going for you? Good. Everything's, I feel good. And you're getting so many basic answers that don't allow you to truly understand where the opportunities are, where what's working well is, where... So I think, again, it goes back to intentionality, which has been a theme, I feel like, in almost every single podcast episode I've done. Heather, we end every episode with two things. The first one is a signature question. And so the signature question I want to ask you is, what's been the most influential resource for you in your career? What is it?
My coworkers, the people that have been kind of boots on the ground kind of before me and open the doors and willing to share their knowledge and their resources with me and want to bring me up with them and want me to continue to grow. So the people.
Thank you for sharing that. I end every episode with what I call fun rapid fire. So I'm just going to give you 4 or 5 things, and I just want quick answers from you, whatever pops in your brain, okay?
Sounds
Favorite
good.
Vacation spot, what is it?
Oh, St. Croix.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
New food you've tried at some point in the past year that you actually liked?
Oh, man. New food? A new sushi roll, something different, something off of what I normally get.
Reality TV show that you just can't stop watching?
Love is Blind.
No idea what that is. Better tennis player, you or your husband?
Oh, me, for sure.
And the last one.
Don't argue with that.
And the last one, hardest part of being a mom, what is it?
Balancing work and wanting to be home with my son. So, yeah, definitely hardest part.
Well, and the point is recognizing it's a hard balance, I think, and just doing your best, right, to be able to balance. And a lot of that does involve having conversations with your coworkers and a lot of other things we talked about today. So, Heather, I really appreciate you being on and sharing so much with us. If people want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, feel free to email me directly, and you can email me at hfuchs@lbn.edu.
And for those of you who are wondering how to spell Fuchs, I will spell it for you. It's HFUCHS. I really appreciate it, Heather.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Hey, all, Zach here from Enrollify. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Mission Admissions with Jeremy Tiers. If you like this episode, do us a huge favor and hit that follow and subscribe button below. Furthermore, if you've got just 2 minutes to spare, we would greatly appreciate you leaving a rating and a review of this show on Apple Podcasts. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, admissions, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks that are all designed to empower you to become a better higher ed professional. But Enrollify is far more than just a podcast network. Enrollify is where higher ed comes to learn new marketing skills, discover new products and services, and find their next job. We're a growing, learning community of 4,000 members, and we'd love to welcome you into the fold. You can access our free blog articles, newsletters, e-courses, and more, or purchase our master course on how to market a university with Terry Flannery at enrollify.org. We look forward to meeting you soon and welcoming you into the community. Again, you can subscribe for free at enrollify.org.